So welcome everyone to this special online conversation hosted by Moving to the Future and the Wize Move Society, the online community for the over 50 generation. This wise generation is growing rapidly. We live longer, are longer healthy and active, and are better educated than ever. There are many reasons why this generation should play a significant role in the economy and in society a lot longer than they expected when they started their careers. So we believe that the over 50 generation has a significant role to play in the creation of the future. We just need to tap into their knowledge, experience, and wisdom. And with these Tuesday live conversations, we aim to give you a glimpse of what is happening online on the Wize Move Society, to share a bit about both the challenges and the opportunities that the 50+ generation is facing, as well as how the members of the Wize Move Society work together to create the solutions and play an active role in society and in the economy. The wise generation is very clear that we're not on our way out, we're part of the future. So those who join us on Zoom, all welcome. We love you to contribute in the conversation as always. If you've joined us on Facebook, also great to see you. Please share your feedback and your comments and questions for Maggie in the comments. So my name is Ingun. I'm the founder of Moving to the Future and the creator of the Wize Move Society. I'm here today with my co-host, Tebello, Mokhema, and our guest, Maggie Webber from Australia. And I see that also Francis has already joined, also from South Africa. Good to see you, Francis. So we're going to hear a lot more about you, Maggie, but we love to hear your story and of course, dive deep into the topic, how to explore new technologies like blockchain. So before we dive into this topic, I would like to ask Tebello to introduce herself and then pass it over to Maggie. So Tebello, the floor is yours.
Hi, Ingun, thank you. I hope you can hear me. For those that are in South Africa, you know that various parts of the country are experiencing load shedding. So my network may not be very stable. I'm excited to be here today, and I join you wearing two hats today. One is the head as the project manager of the Wize Move Society, working with Ingun and another colleague in the organization. The second hat is also as a crypto enthusiast, and I'm glad that we've got Maggie here that will be, sharing her knowledge and experience, in this space, because I strongly believe that whether you are 50 and above, whether you're a female, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you need to keep your eyes and ears open about what's happening in the crypto world. You can't ignore it any further. It is here, and it's going to impact many of our lives. So yeah, that's my introduction. We'll be participating in the session, as well, giving input and asking questions as well to our guest, Maggie. Maggie, over to you.
Thank you so much. It's terrific to be here. Now, I was asked to give a little bit of an introduction about me, but I'm really just going to focus on how I got into blockchain and crypto, and because otherwise we'll be here all night or all day for you. So in summary, it was back in 2017 that I first, I'd heard the word Bitcoin, but I'd never really paid much attention to it. So 2017, a friend of mine introduced me to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, when it comes to cryptocurrency, I call it the mothership. It was the first of the cryptocurrencies invented. And there was a very specific reason why it was invented at the time that it was, and I'll get into that in a minute. But when I first got involved in Bitcoin, it was around about $4,700 Australian, which is, I don't know, €2,500, maybe €3,000 for one Bitcoin. And so I started just little bit, doing something called dollar cost averaging. So I put a little bit every week and a little bit, and I got my confidence up a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. And then I came across a company called BitConnect. And BitConnect, there's a website that you can go on to check out all the different cryptocurrencies. They're called altcoins, Bitcoin, and then all the others are called altcoins. And it's called CoinMarketCap, and it gives the history of the founders of a particular cryptocurrency. And CoinMarketCap's very, very highly respected. And BitConnect at that time eventually got up to number 8 on the CoinMarketCap. So it was very, everyone thought it was fair income, and well, sorry, that's a very Australian saying, thought it was a wonderful thing. And so I put my $10,000 US into this, and it was one of those things where you had to introduce people. So I introduced my son and I introduced my daughter. I paid for them, mind you, but and it was one of those introduced type MLM-y things. And I was doing really well with it. And they had your $10,000 for 3 months. And I'd already made a Bitcoin in profit. And I was just about to get out after my 3 months. And I didn't listen to my intuition. I listened to what's called my upline, who said, oh, look how much money we can make. Look, you're mad to get out. Wow, 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 wow. 2 days later, it went bust, as a lot of the MLMs do. And that's why I avoid them like the plague. And so the sad thing was there's some very, very smart people involved in crypto in those days who got dragged into this BitConnect saga. And back 4 years ago, there were people throwing money at what are called ICO, initial coin offerings, and it was just ridiculous. And now people are a lot more circumspect. But I'm so grateful that that circumstance happened to me, that event happened to me, because I got so annoyed with myself that I'd been scammed. It sent me on a whole journey of drilling really down deep into crypto and the whole history of Bitcoin and why it was started. And I end up writing a best-selling book on it, because I really drilled deep. And so now when it comes to me investing, and I've invested in a few. Oh, by the way, disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. So when I use the word investment, I'm talking about my journey, my investments, right? And I'm not giving any investment advice here at all. Anything I'm saying is for educational purposes and entertainment purposes, okay? But I have, because when I do buy a coin now, or invest into a project, I drill right down deep. I don't ever go into one just to make a profit, ever. I find out about the management team. I find out about their mission. I find out about their vision. And I always take a long-term perspective, which is what's called hodling. I buy and I hold. I don't trade, because the market's volatile enough as it is. It's erratic enough as it is. So anyway, that was pretty well my journey as to how I got started. And then I was living in Portugal 2 years ago. I was very involved in the blockchain community over there in Europe and in London. And then when I came back to Australia a year ago now, I was approached by someone who has started a company which, I'll try and summarize it. He's been involved in selling property using what's called exchange dollars. Like, I don't know if you have barter exchanges and things in Europe, but we had a few of them in Australia, and he'd been selling property using exchange dollars for 20 years. Now, 2 years ago, they launched their own token where people can use that token, that coin, it's a crypto, right? To put a deposit on an investment property. And they've also got a 5-year loan that they can give you access to, which is interest-free. It's a terrific. So I'm an ambassador for them. And I've now, in the last 6 months, been voted as the president of a tech hub. The only female within Kui. They're all men. And it's a fascinating market to be involved in. And they've built the fastest blockchain in the world, bar none. They've taken 8 years to do it. So that's my background as to how I've got into it.
Before I let Tebello ask the more detailed questions, because she's much more experienced than I am. By the way, I bought my first Bitcoins around 2,000 euros. So I think we're the same. We started at the same time. You know, with the Wize Move Society, we're talking about these 50+ generation. You know, it is on one hand, you know, they might feel older, or the society or the economy perceives them as older. But it is also for them, because they probably will have to work much longer than what they used to. It is important to dive into new technologies like blockchain and Bitcoin. So why do you think that's just keeping this generation? Why is it so important to stay on top of things?
Well, you hit the nail on the head right there, because of the aging population. That's number one. And my other area of interest is in aging, and in being, you know, and reversing your cellular age, and doing whatever you can to do that, and to get the absolute best from your body for as long as you can. And one of the reasons for that is you know, with the increase in medical science and, you know, nutrition, our sort of average dying off age has just gone through the roof, right? And this is a really concerning thing for governments. You know, like in Australia 20 years ago, it was a fait accompli that you'd get a pension. Now the governments are running out of money. You can't depend on a government anymore for a pension. You know what I mean by a pension, right? That's a word that you use, okay? And also because of that, we use a word in Australia called superannuation. Now in America, it's called like a 401k, or a defined benefit, defined contribution thing, where you've been putting your savings in for years and years, right? Because we're staying alive longer, that money's going to run out faster.
It is,
right? So there's one massive challenge. The second massive challenge that we've got as we get older, and I tell you what, you know, I mean, I'm never going to retire. I mean, the only way I'm going to retire is when they carry me out in a box. So I'm going to make sure that I have built enough to keep living on, you know. And so my biggest concern is now, you know, we had a GFC. I'm going to talk about that when I get much more into the history of Bitcoin. But the GFC back in 2008, 2009, okay, that was a massive time when so many people lost their future savings because of the GFC. And I'll explain why in a little while. But now we've had, and I know at the time in Australia, we had what were called stimulus packages, where the government would just print a whole lot more money and they'd stimulate the economy. So therefore your value of your dollar or your euro or your whatever currency, fiat, it's called fiat currency that you use, keeps going down a bit more, down a bit more, down a bit more. And now we've had COVID. And I tell you what, those printing presses are going 24/7 to pay for all the various things. Your dollars, just all that you've saved so hard for to keep you in your retirement, is going to be worth so little. So little. And I'm going to open up a photograph in a minute. There it is here. And so we can't just think that we're going to survive on our savings, right? We've got to look at leveraging or leveraging. My mother always used to say it's a lever, not a lever. So it's leveraging what we've got and getting the best bang for our buck, or our euro, or our ruble, or our whatever. Absolutely. We've got to get the best use out of what we've got. And so I'll just read this little comparison. Fascinating. The value of $1,000 invested 10 years ago, if you invested in Google, that would be worth $9,996. You invested in Apple, $10,302. Microsoft, $10,965. Amazon, $14,965. Netflix 39,625, Nvidia, don't even know what that is, 56,640, Tesla 143,091, Bitcoin $13,324,390.
Yeah.
That's all she wrote.
Yeah.
You know, so let's think about that. And that's a bit of an old thing because, you know, $1,000 10 years. Oh no, actually no, that is correct. That is correct, because I love the statistic about. I did a presentation last week, and a little bit of the history with the Bitcoin was that the first paper on it was written in 2008. The first block on the blockchain was built in January 2009. But about 6 months after that, the first transaction took place with Bitcoin. And there was a gentleman, I shouldn't laugh. There's a gentleman called Laszlo who bought 2 Papa John pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
Now, I haven't worked out the figures today, but I did for a presentation last week. That's 553,180 pounds he paid for 2 Papa John's pizzas.
Yeah, yeah.
This is why we need to be looking at this, ladies and gentlemen. We need to be looking at it very seriously.
Yeah, I agree, because we need alternatives. But you know, Maggie, if you just look at the technology, you know, what is that blockchain? What makes it so much better than what we already had? What is this Bitcoin or all these cryptos? Because I think right now we have 9,000 coins, so a lot. What is
13,000?
13,000. Wow, it's even more. It's even more than we had valuta. And you know, in Europe we said, well, it's already too much. Let's all make it euro. So we're you know, in the money part, we're going back, and in the crypto, we're developing more and more coins. So very simple, very simple. This blockchain technology, why is this so interesting? And this crypto technology, why is it so interesting? What does it add to what we already had? And how interesting is it, apart from investments and things like that, in looking at the future?
And I have 10 minutes to do this, because
Yes.
so it's going to take.
And
I'm going to look at
version
and this is the simple version. I promise I've chunked it down as simply as I can.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a little bit of the history as well, because I want you to just get it. It can be really overwhelming until you chunk it down, but it really, it isn't if you understand the philosophy behind it. So let's just start with some basics. What is a blockchain? A blockchain is a decentralized ledger. So it's like made up of blocks of data, of information. So each of these projects, each of these, they're now 13,136 altcoins today. I checked on CoinMarketCap. So each of these is built on a blockchain, which is this decentralized, so that each of them are got these blocks of data. So let's just refer to Bitcoin to make it simple. So the Bitcoin blockchain, the first block that was created was called the Genesis block, like the first book in the Bible, right? And the interesting thing about that Genesis block was that there was a little hidden message in that block. And it was a quote from the front of the Times of London for January the 3rd, 2009. And what did it say? It said, Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. Not the first bailout for banks, but the second bailout for banks. So back about 6 months earlier, Lehman Brothers, too big to fail, these big banks, belly up.
Yeah.
And so the government came in and thought, we can't lose our banks. So they came in and they bailed out the banks.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't bail out the people who put all their savings in the banks. No, they bailed out the banks twice, right? And this is what got upset the people who created Bitcoin so much, that these people who make so much profit anyway, et cetera, were being bailed out. So that little thing, with a little quote from the Times of London, was a timestamp because it showed the 3rd of January 2009, because that was the front cover of the Times, but it was also a really derisive comment on the global instability caused by fractional reserve banking. Okay, so that's what it is. So you've got a blockchain is made up of these blocks of data, and on the Bitcoin blockchain, one block is made every 10 minutes. So all these transactions are all added up into one block, but then there's a little, without getting too technical, there's a little algorithm, a little what's called a hash from the block number 1 that's got to be included in block number 2, and the little hash in the block number 2 has got to be included in block number 3. Which means that you can't fiddle a blockchain. You cannot change it. It's immutable, which means it's not like you can cook the books. It just can't be changed, all right, which is one of the top benefits of it. But so your top benefits are the security, there's zero chance of fraud and record tampering. The transfer, although Bitcoin's pretty slow for transferring because you need what are called 3 verifications for it to happen. So it can be a little bit slow compared to some of the blockchains now, like our one that I'm involved with. They're so fast, right? But we're just talking about the mothership right now, the one that started everything. So, but I sent some money to my son in Lisbon last week for his birthday. It cost me something like 35, because he won't get a Bitcoin wallet, will he? My daughter's onto it, but he's not. So it cost me $35 in fees, and it took 4 days for him to get it.
Yeah.
In Bitcoin, he would have with Bitcoin he would have had that in a couple of hours latest, and no exorbitant money charges. I've known millions of dollars to be transferred by what are called the whales. They're the people who do the big charges, and it's only cents. So this is another of the benefits, and you're not having these middlemen who are just taking their cut, right? So this is the whole philosophy behind Bitcoin, that it decentralizes things. It takes the power out of the hands of a few, be it a government or be it a bank or a family running a bank, which is what the case is with the Federal Reserve. And it's open source, so every transaction that's ever gone on a blockchain can be tracked back. You won't see that it's Joe Blogs or Maggie Webber, but you will see my Bitcoin address. So it can be tracked that way. All right. So decentralization is at the core of blockchain and Bitcoin. And the inventors of it wanted no one person or one government to have control, and therefore manipulate the markets. Yeah. So that's what a blockchain is. Do you now want to know what a cryptocurrency is? A little bit about cryptocurrency?
Well, just to summarize, because I do think that is important. You know, we come from a generation that we have, you know, we're used to cents and dollars and, you know, hold it in our hands. We had our piggy banks. You know, every week I brought a quarter to school, and I bought a stamp that I could put in my booklet, and that was also my saving. You know, we are used with our bank accounts. You know, and in the beginning, we had our checks and whether they were covered or not covered, and we got used to the credit cards, and that was already strange because it was this plastic thingy, and we could just pay with it. And you know, a lot happened over the past so many years, but it was all connected to the bank system. The bank system, and that is what I that is my way of thinking. It doesn't work anymore.
No.
So this is something that well, might replace, because, well, our governments still are holding on to our bank system because that is what they're doing. So we are looking at a totally different concept of money, of trading, of storing data, because that is very important.
Yes.
And not anymore connected to one bank, or not more connected to one country, or not more connected to one organization. It is, yes. So, okay, so that is a little bit, and that is also, you know, if we are looking at our generation, you know, we come from, you know, the last 50, 30, 40, 50 years with so many changes that already happened. And now there is this thing that we just cannot grab, but how can we learn to understand this?
Okay.
And
Well,
also, and also,
you're not
sorry,
going to learn to understand it in an hour, that's for sure. But yes.
Okay, Nicolette will get back to you. Yeah.
no, it's
Okay,
about the
yeah.
trust thing as well. I mean, it's all
trust,
interesting.
yes, yeah. We don't have it in our hand. We don't have it in a pocket anymore. It's not visible on our phone where we see how much money that we have. Well, by the way, my wallet is on my phone. So anyhow, so you Maggie.
I can tell you exactly how much I've got in Australian dollars in my.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay.
But now we'll get on to the trust bit, because that's a very valid point. And I think that what happened, one of the side effects of the GFC was that so much trust was lost. And one of the main reasons that so much trust was lost was not just because of the bailouts, but in 2013, we had a thing called a bail-in Cyprus, where Cyprus was the first place that it happened, and it also happened in Austria, where the creditors who had their money in the bank, when the bank was trying to save itself, they took the creditors' funds up to 90% in Cyprus of people who had their money in the banks in Cyprus, because that's called a bail-in, where the bank decides that you are, I've forgotten the word that they used, but they just came and took their money. And the banks can do that. And there was a law passed in Australia at the G20 conference in 2017, where the G20 countries are allowed to do this if you've got any more than $100,000 or something in your bank account. These are really frightening things, guys. And most people don't even know about this. Google bail-in. I would no more have much money in the bank than fly to the moon. These days, I have no trust at all in banks. And I'm sorry, I've got a lot of friends in banking. And I was at a fintech conference in London. It was one of the funniest things. 2 years ago, I was at this fintech conference, and we had people from the board of, you know, Bank of England and Santander. I got on really well with the director of Santander Bank, and there was BlackRock there. You know, they've got more money under asset management than any other company in the world, private money. And they were all talking in their usual pinstripe suits, and they're about the traditional banking. There was one person 2 years ago that talked about crypto and tokenization. And then there was a little room off the side where a man from Amsterdam, right? He got in and he designed a blockchain, and he took 7 minutes to do it. He just went, and these chappies in their beautiful red ties and blue ties and their pinstripe suits in the front row were going, what just happened? It was really interesting. And now, of course, you've got hedge funds coming into the party. You've got all of these people coming in because they realize that if they don't get in, they're going to miss the boat. But let's go back. So at the moment, with the Bitcoin, as I say, was the first. As of today's date, there are now 1,136 different altcoins, and there's 422 exchanges, and that's growing every day. And next week, there's going to be a new one because we launch our own exchange next week. It is not physical money. It exists online. But your money, oh, I meant to have a $50 note to show you, but your money that you've got, you know, your fiat money, your $50 or your €50, if that's actually in your bank account, it's online there too. You can't touch it there either. It's just a series of zeros and ones. And your bank can come and have a bail-in and take and make it disappear. Now, at this stage, a cryptocurrency has not been issued yet by a bank or a government. That may be about to change, because there are many countries now that are looking, particularly China, who are looking at having what's called a CBDC. Now, that's got nothing to do with medical marijuana and cannabinoids. A CBDC stands for a central bank digital currency, which defeats the whole purpose of decentralization. But some of the banks are, you know, some of the countries are looking very seriously at having their own currency. Now, so in order for people to trust Bitcoin, there need to be what are called checks and balances. There's that word trust. And they need to be secure, feel secure, how can I say, as secure about Bitcoin as they do about their national fiat currency. Well, let me tell you, I don't feel secure about ours. I don't know about you. And I was a little bit of an aside. I saw this photo a couple of days ago, and I really must find it and keep it. And it was some children playing in Germany at the end of must have been about the end of the war, right? So I guess back then they were called marks. They wouldn't have been called euros. And they had piles and piles and piles of banknotes, marks, right? Mountains of them. But they had been devalued to such an extent that they were worthless. So they were making cubby houses out of them. It was frightening, and that can all happen again. And then you've got inflation, which comes into, I mean, Argentina had an inflation rate of 112% only but 5 years ago, which is why I find it interesting that El Salvador has now taken on Bitcoin as one of its currencies. And Paraguay and some of the South American countries are following suit very quickly, because they realize that if they don't do this, all their savings have just gone through the floor anyway, and it's much safer for them to have Bitcoin. And I was listening to this chappie today who was talking about the collapse of currencies. It's not just collapses of banks and things that are going to happen in the next 10 years. It's the collapse of currencies. So we will probably only have about 10 currencies. In about 10, we'll probably have a yen, a US dollar, a euro, and a few others. And as he said, if I had to leave a country in a hurry, like say I had to leave South Africa, I know what it was like 30 years ago when people were trying to get their rands out of South Africa. And the only way a lot of people were buying diamonds and wearing them out of the country, right? You can't do it if you might be able to buy a yacht and sail that away. But if you've got all your money invested in houses and this and that and the other, you can't transport it. And if your country goes under, but if you've got Bitcoin or if you've got cryptocurrencies, you can transfer that anywhere in the world, right? And the other thing is too that we've got to consider is that it's performing so much better than the S&P with shares. It's performing so much better than gold. And this is just Bitcoin. Ethereum's up there with it, that's number 2. But there's some other ones that are coming up now which are faster, and like there's one called Cardano that I'm really, really interested in, where the founder, I was blessed to meet the founder, Charles Hoskinson, in London a couple of years ago, and he's got such a good heart. He's doing so many brilliant projects in Africa, particularly for children, for youth, and for women. These are brilliant projects that are being done with this. It's coming from a completely different philosophy, Ingun, and these are things that we really, I don't know, this is what drives me. This is what makes me jump out of bed in the morning, this kind of thing.
Wow, Maggie, I mean, I could sit here and I could listen to you the whole time. And I love, the information that you're sharing, because once you are in crypto, the more you hear this information again, the more you know that, okay, we are in the right space because there is consistency in the information. I think there were a couple of questions and comments that came through, if you don't mind, that I'd like to add in terms of just my experience. So one of the comments was about the trust and hacking. And I think when it comes to cryptocurrencies, it's like anything that has to do with technology. There is a risk of hacking. We can't run away from it. You know, however, in terms of where you keep your cryptos, Ingun spoke about having a wallet address earlier. That's where it helps you to be able to keep the cryptos that you have, you know, in a safe place. So I think if we just step out of the, will it be hacked? Anything that is technology based will be hacked. The question is in terms of, you know, the coins that, or as Maggie was saying, the developers of the various coins, once you understand the system that they have to minimize, you know, the hacking, that just helps with building your own confidence. And Francis was saying, you need the money to buy crypto. You know what it's like? It's almost like buying gold. To start buying your first crypto, you need the fiat. But once you are in the system, you can use the crypto to buy more crypto. You don't need to be going back, you know, into the fiat system. So it's like if you've got your gold and you're being told that you want to buy more gold, you can decide, I want to go to the bank and buy more gold, or I use what I already have because it's gained value, you know, to be able to buy more. Nicolette was asking about, you know, what impacts.
Can I do one question? Yeah, about the security. And I haven't actually got my little one here with me, which is very naughty of me. It's like a little hard wallet, right? So that's my my ledger, right? So there's various kinds of wallets that you can use. You can use hot wallets like on your phone or on your laptop. They can be hacked. You can but that's convenience, you know, as you're moving stuff around and whatever. You can have what are called paper wallets, where you print out your private key, which is your special thing, which you don't share with anybody ever, right? And you that's your little like private passport, and you have often with them to get a wallet going. You have what are called mnemonics, like 12 or 25 mnemonics, which are words that if ever your wallet you couldn't get into, you can get back in and start a new one if you've got those words, right? So it's another layer of security on there. And then you have these hard wallets. Now I put most of mine on my hard wallet, so it's safe, right? And my but the other thing is something called 2FA. 2FA protection is another layer of security where you can't even get into your wallet on your phone unless you have what's called like a Google Authenticator. And so the Google Authenticator, you've taken a snapshot of the QR code of your wallet. That goes onto the Google Authenticator. Every minute it goes around and it gives you a new number every minute. And that number is what you put in to be able to get into your wallet. It can be a pain because it takes a bit longer, but let me tell you, it protects your funds and protects your coins. And you need this kind of protection because there is a lot of scamming out there, and you've got to I cover all of this in my course about how to protect yourself, that's why I say I was so glad that I got scammed, because it was the cheapest lesson I've ever had about learning how to protect myself in crypto. And to show others how to become, how to do this, how to, you know, what exchanges to use, or which, you know, lowest fees, and really how to keep yourself protected. But most of mine are offline in a what's called a hard wallet. Yeah. Great.
I love that. And we're seeing more and more hard wallets also coming through. And it's giving a lot of people, because as somebody was saying earlier, we still, as human beings, we still want to touch the money, even though, as you said, Maggie, most of the time we actually, I mean, when was the last time any one of us went to an ATM to take out money? You go into a shop, you use your card. You go to the petrol station, you use your card. So actually, when we think about it, most of us haven't touched money in a long time. Crypto is just that form of saying you've moved away, from having this money that you touch. When I talk to people about this space, I say to them, remember a couple of years ago, you went to the post office to get your letters. When was the last time any of us went to the post office? Right now, you just say to the person, say, give me your email address, or Wes, give me your WhatsApp number. And that's basically what the crypto space is doing. It's taking you away from the hard money, from the fiat money into the space. One other question Nicolette had asked, and I want to ask you a question back on blockchain again, Maggie. It was, around the value. So what increases or decreases the value? It's the use. How many people are using in terms of buying or selling that particular coin? So with Bitcoin, as Maggie said, well, yes, we'll add more to that. With Bitcoin, as Maggie said, most people, have got are using it in terms of selling and buying. And other coins, more people are getting comfortable with them. Question that I wanted to ask Maggie, and you can comment on it as well, is so blockchain is not only used in the crypto space, right? How else can people use blockchain? Because I think a lot of people are still being confused and they think crypto, Bitcoin, blockchain, when actually you're talking three different concepts, right? Blockchain, ledger, cryptocurrency, different cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, one of these different cryptocurrencies. So how else can people use blockchain?
Okay, well, blockchain is really only the technology behind cryptocurrency. Right? It's if you're building a house, it's like the foundation you're building your house on. It's the technology, the ledger system behind it. So therefore, blockchain is used in the supply management. It's used in voting. It's used in fishing. It's used in so many. I was speaking with someone about this wonderful thing about aerial dropping of seeding for crops and things. It's all done on blockchain, you see, and it's tracked and it cannot be changed. That whole system can't be changed of the information that's on there. So it's really, and can you imagine? Maybe I shouldn't mention any countries about elections, but you can't fiddle the votes, right? Because it's all on the blockchain and it's immutable, and you can't have someone, as we've seen in Western and Eastern countries, and I'll leave it at that, where the elections are so totally rigged. Can't do that once it's on blockchain. So that's an answer to some of the other uses of blockchain.
Right, and I think that's.
Can I answer one more thing? Sorry, Tebello. You were
Mm-hmm.
asking about the value of
Yes.
Bitcoin. Now, this is really, really important, and it doesn't happen with all coins. But when Satoshi Nakamoto, who was the founder of Bitcoin, and we still don't know to this day whether it was a he or a she or a group of people, it doesn't matter, it's just part of the mystery. Now, what was I going to say? I've had a complete blank. What was I talking about?
It should have been on
about the value increasing and decreasing. The
value. Beg your pardon. I just had a complete blank. I tell you what, that's called a senior moment. So when they founded Bitcoin, they decided there was only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin made, minted, mined, whatever. No, it's actually not minted, it's mined. And so this is another thing. I didn't even get onto miners and the importance of miners in creating the checks and balances. All right, because there's not one computer that it's done on. There's computers all around the world that are all linked up to all of this. But there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. So in the early days when a block was created, back in the days when Bitcoin was 5 cents, when someone created a block, when a miner created a block and won the race and worked out the maths, they got paid 50 Bitcoin. Every 4 years, there's a thing called the halving or the halvening. Some people call it the halvening. So the rate that they get in Bitcoin goes down by half. Now, we had a halvening in May this year. So now anytime one block is made, every 10 minutes, the miner who gets it, and there's like big mining camps now, you know, it's not just one person sitting working on a computer anymore. They get 6.2 of these Bitcoin. Next time it happens in 3 years' time, it's going to be 3.1, whatever. Don't ask me the maths. And it comes down and down and down until it's 2140, when the last Bitcoin will ever be produced. Therefore, if you understand anything about economics, it's all supply and demand, particularly as one, I've got Alexa talking to me. It's all right, Alexa, I'm going to bed soon. She's telling me it's time to go to bed. So there's already been 18,800,000 Bitcoin mined. So there's only just over 2 million left to mine. So the value of it has got to go up. And now that you've got your hedge funds and what are called the whales getting in there and buying massive amounts of it, those who've got Bitcoin, the value is going to go up and up and up and up. Mm-hmm. So that's how but not all coins have got a stipulated number. Some of them have got a lot.
Lots, yes.
Are going to be produced.
Yeah. Maggie, you've written, and we'll come to Nicolette's question as well in terms of the energy, but you've written 2 bestsellers, I think, on blockchain.
Well, just one on blockchain.
Okay, yeah. But please tell us about the 2 books that you've written and why you decided to write them.
Okay, well, I'm sometimes called the working mother's mentor, because that's the group of people I'm really passionate about, having been a working mum for I don't know how many years now, and a single working mum at that. And I remember hearing John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, talking and saying a working woman today is doing her mother and her father's job. And a single working woman is either a miracle worker or she's crazy. So, because she's got all these balls up in the air. So I wrote my books based on my journey as a single working mother, about ways that I found to help me. So my first one was called A Working Mother's Guide to a Guilt-Free Career, because so many mums do the whole guilt trip thing. So I was telling about my journey and ways I've got around getting over the guilt and realizing I'm very important, you know, important enough to have my own career, for goodness sake, right? Which so many mothers find hard. The second one I wrote was A Working Mother's Guide to Blockchain and Cryptocurrency, which I'm, you know, now going to be, I'm going to be launching a course next week called Cracking Crypto, which is really going to break cryptocurrency right down into bite-sized pieces for people. And then the third one that I wrote was A Working Mother's Guide to Self-Care, because that's the thing so many of us forget. Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. And I suppose, you know, those books are not only relevant to working mothers, but if I think about the self-care, the crypto, you know, and the first one that you wrote, as people are moving into different stages of their lives, most of those lessons are still very much applicable, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And the only reason I call them A Working Mother's Guide is because that was my niche that I was focusing on, and that was the one that I really wanted to serve, because that was my journey. Yeah.
One last question from me. Nicolette had the question, and then I'll hand over to Ingun about the energy, because mining, as we know, requires a lot of energy and a lot of electricity, and some countries have, you know, had already raised issues around that, and we saw Elon Musk also making noise about it. Now we're also seeing him making another noise about, you know, different types of energy that people are using. But what are your views on that, Maggie?
This is my big concern about Bitcoin, because it uses massive amounts of power, particularly now the algorithms are getting harder and harder and harder to crack, because the maths is getting hard. You know, this is how the miners get paid, when they crack the algorithm, right? And they do the block, and then they get paid the Bitcoin, you know, for each block. And it uses massive amounts of power. So that's why China had so many mining, what are called mining farms, but they've now all been thrown out of China, And a lot of them have gone to America. So they're going to places where the electricity is cheaper, but that still doesn't appeal to my, I'm really into sustainability and looking after Mother Earth. So I'm a greenie through and through. So that's one of my biggest concerns about Bitcoin. Now I just noticed that we've got a Bitcoin mine that's just been started in Byron Bay, which is north, probably about 8 hours north of me here in Port Stephens, but they're using green power to mine the Bitcoin. Now, and in Iceland, there's massive mining farms over there where they use geothermal power.
Yeah.
And if they can use alternative power sources, like we've got the blooming whatever desert, taking up 4/5 of Australia, put some solar panels out there and use power from there. We don't need to be using electricity. We can be using wind power. But the other way of looking at it is this. Now, the company that I'm involved with, they have what's called, without getting too technical, Ethereum also uses quite a bit of power. That's the second biggest crypto. And they've got what are called gas fees, which are very expensive. I won't go into all of that now. I'll go into that in the course. But it's just again defeating the purpose of what crypto is all about. Whereas the company that I'm involved with, you can actually mint your coins on your phone. And my daughter in London, when she remembers, naughty girl, she pushes a button on her phone, because I've bought her what's called a silver mining package with New Genesis, the company I'm involved with. She just has to, now she's all set up, she's done all her mnemonics and whatever, she just has to push a button on her phone every day and she gets 25 tokens of the New Genesis tokens on her phone. And she builds up from there. It uses no power except the power on your phone. And that's the way crypto's going. That's the way crypto's going. We need to have no gas fees. We need to be green. We've got our own version of green Bitcoin. We must be green. We must look after Mother Earth. And that's my biggest challenge with Bitcoin, unless it's done with green energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is very important to look after, because we need to look after our planet. So this is an issue that has to be solved, and it's very important. Yeah.
There's one more thing that it's doing. I'm sorry interrupting. There's one more thing that's massively important to me, which is why I love crypto. On this planet at this time, there are over 2 billion people, men and women, who are what are called unbanked. They do not have access to a bank account, let alone any financial services. So they can't even really save money unless they put, ears of corn under their bed, because that's the way they tend to do things, just with barter. But if they, and this is happening, if most of these people, ironically, have got a mobile phone and they've got access to the internet. And if this is the solution to the problem of the unbanked in the world, is to get involved with crypto, and then they can build from there. And this is so important. You won't find a bank doing that. This is all what I call, and I got a website the other day called Beyond the Banks. This is all taking us beyond the banks. This is the great leveler, cryptocurrency.
Well, Tebello obviously knows that I wanted to add that, because that is really the thing that for me is so important, to bank the unbanked. That is, we really need to find ways to really involve all those that are not banked and that don't have an address, or whatever the reason, live too remote. This is something that can happen for everyone. Yeah. If I look at these things, and again, it's a little bit of summary, and it is tough, to really get into this, because it is a completely new technology. It is completely new coins. It is completely new way of thinking, and that is what we need, because the old way doesn't you can always build on the old ways, or, and that is also one of my quotes, you know, don't fight the old, but create the new. And that is, in a world like this, is so important. So is blockchain or crypto, are we going to see in 10, 20, 50 years that maybe it didn't work, or that it was the solution for what is happening with the banking system right now? So we're not sure, you know, we just don't know. But this is something that is completely new, and to really figure out things that are completely new. And especially, you know, if you've done something for 40, 50, 60 years, and it has always worked, as we say, you know, I've always done it like this and it has always worked, so it will work on. No, it doesn't. You know, we really need the new stuff. And this is important, especially, and that is what I love that you added it, to bank the unbanked, because that is so important. If we want an equal society, then that is important. So for me, you know, just because we really have to work into the, well, almost the hour, I have my cryptos, you know, already for many years. And yes, I bought my first my Bitcoins when they were about $2,000. So sold them on the way. So that's too bad. But anyhow.
Not too late. Trust me. Get back in.
Yeah, I have my mining package. So I do that as well. Just also, I do that not huge amounts, but because I'm forcing myself almost to be involved and learn about it, because that for me is very important. How about you, Nicolette? Do you have some cryptos, or have you been involved? Have you been digging into it?
you read my comment so here when I arrived in the UK, I still had to send checks, and I thought, seriously, is this the city? I was really amazed. Yeah. And my sister-in-law is a lawyer. She still does not transfer money online. Can you imagine? Yeah, and I'm Nick Marsman is a chartered accountant, and he's actually CFO, but we don't do anything. We believe very much in investing in houses and things like that. So, but I'm actually quite intrigued and interested. We've got some friends who are into Bitcoins, but he doesn't trust it. And specifically, there's been quite a few scandals. That's why the trust thing I put in the chat box. So I think it takes a bit of a while before maybe I'll do a bit of like my own pocket money, if you see what I mean, to try like you did, Ingun. Yeah. That's, I think, a way to start and to learn. But no, we haven't tried it yet because of that.
Dollar cost average, Nicolette, just dollar cost average. Put a few little bits in every, you know, that's how I started, just a little bit every week. So as the market goes up and down, you're hitting an average.
Yeah.
Understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but as I said, that's why I'm interested, and specifically as Inge said, banked unbanked is a bit like having all the telephone networks. So like in Africa, we all have mobiles, and Tebello probably knows. So not having all those lines, now we go straight into mobile phones. And I think that's the same with the banking. Why?
Absolutely.
And it's a bit like with the aging society. I think there's an interesting point you mentioned as well, Inge. We have to understand. And let's face it, all the baby boomers and center points from the old-fashioned banking systems, they're disappearing. So the more new and we embrace it, then I think change can happen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. This is certainly not just for the millennials, not at all. And we've got, you know, if we're getting a bit older and we are not working so hard, you know, maybe some of us are retired, we've got more time to learn it, you know. And as long as you chunk it down, and it's very interesting, you know, because Ingun, you've been saying about, oh, we've been doing it this way for so long, you know, and it's such a, but you know, the ones who make the change in the world, if they were the ones who were thinking, this is the way we've always done it around here, there would be no change.
There would be no change.
We need to be path cutters, and we can be.
Yeah, and especially, you know, if it is about technology, you know, this is so hard to understand. This is not something you can grab, that you can see. So it is something that we do need to gain trust. And before we take the next step, Frances, how about you?
I just have one question. What's always put me off crypto is if you have a problem with whoever you're dealing with, for whatever reason, who do you go to?
Good question.
Very good question. And in my course, when I talk about the pros and the cons, that is one of the very few cons, that there is no regulator in the middle yet. And this is why the SEC is jumping up, the Security Commission in the US is jumping up and down so that you have a regulatory body in the middle. Because if you, for instance, if you, your address is maybe 24 letters and numbers, and if you do something wrong with that address, you know, get one number wrong, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? And there's no comeback. But it's a very good question, Francis, and it is one of the very few downsides of crypto. And as for scams and things, let me tell you, if you get into the history of banking and not just banking, some of the scam, we've just had a royal commission in Australia to our top 4 banks in the last 2 years, and the government really didn't want to do it. And then they had to back down because the people were jumping up and down, and they've had to pay back billions because of all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. So let me tell you, you know, you're hearing about the scams on crypto and whatever, because there are a lot of people. It's a bit like maybe someone Western trained in medicine not wanting to allow stuff on naturopathy or iridology or some other, you know, or Ayurveda, because it's a threat. So they don't really, you know, they don't really want to know about it. But so you'll hear lots of publicity about it. I think the proof of the pudding, you know, the proof is, what do they say? The proof is in the pudding. So to try it and just see for yourself, and find some mates around who've got involved early and had a terrific run with it. And everyone will have some stories about some losses and things, and that's how you learn.
I was approached a number of times to join these multi-layer marketing things. And I realized that the only people who make money are the ones at the top. The rest of the people are just feeding into that machine. And
not necessarily, Francis, not necessarily, but I did very, very well in one of them. But the challenge with most of them, Francis, particularly out of South Africa, some of the worst of them have come out of South Africa. MTI International. There are a couple of others who I can't think of at the time. But they've been the biggest scams of all. Some of them that have come out of South Africa have been shocking. So it's not so much.
So how would you be able to assess who is a scam and who is not?
Anything that is a get-rich-quick scheme like that, be wary of.
Yeah.
Be very, very wary of.
Yeah.
And again, look into the history, look into the management team, look into the, don't just be fooled by some fancy website. And know that if it's any kind of business where there's an introduction, where, you know, it's got levels in it, the people up above are making a lot out of it. That's why I won't go near them. I won't go near them now. Finalmente is another one that came out of South Africa. And then there was one out of Russia. And, you know, I mean, I made a lot of money in a couple of them, but I was lucky. I got out of MTI before it crashed. But again, anything where I've got to introduce someone, and if there's any kind of risk of them going under, my reputation's worth far more than to introduce one of my friends into something where they could fail and they would lose their money. I couldn't have it on my conscience. Couldn't have it on my conscience.
Yeah. Tebello, you wanted to share something?
Yes, it was what Maggie was saying in terms of, if you're looking for information, go and find the website, research about, you know, these companies as much as possible. And what also she said around anything that says to you, if you spend so much, you will get so much percentage within a short space of time, run away from that. You know, because the thing with crypto, because it's so volatile, today we're making, the value has increased so much, and tomorrow it's gone down. So where are all those rewards that you were promised within a short space going to be coming from? And that's what people need to understand, that, you know, people may promise you lots of returns, but if you look at how volatile, I mean, just last week, everybody was saying Bitcoin is going to get to 100,000, US dollars. It went down. And now imagine if we had gone in, with that. So the research is absolutely important. And if you know and hear of people close to you that are involved in Bitcoins, talk to them. Let them tell you their experiences, because it's when we talk with each other that we pick up, some nuggets of wisdom in
Absolutely correct.
Mhm.
There's a company called Behind MLM, I think, and they will tell you whether any, if someone comes to you with an opportunity, Google the name of it and just see the reviews.
Mhm.
That's a really good indication for you. And there's something else, when in my Cracking Crypto course, the first session is on mindset. Because there's no good getting involved in all of this if you have not got the right mindset. I'm involved with a group in America where they're being mentored, right? We've got two great mentors who run the #1 crypto podcast in the world, Crypto 101. And I've just watched as this group's grown and grown and grown, and these people are coming in and they're going, yes, I made this much money on XYZ today. And then the next day they're through the floor, their emotions are through the floor. This is part and parcel of it, which is why I'm not a trader, because I can't afford that whole emotional roller coaster. And I wouldn't do it. I'm a hodler. I buy and I hold, and I take the long-term perspective. But so many people who are getting involved in crypto are doing it because they're getting they're coming from a perspective of what I call the GFI. And GFI stands for the Greed and Fear Index, which you can actually Google. And particularly after COVID, so many people's lives are run on fear. Do not get involved in anything like this if you are coming from greed or if you're coming from fear. So that's why it runs on the mindset and coming from the heart.
Can I ask a last question?
Last question.
Yeah. When you draw your money out, you say you hold it for the long term. So you draw your money out. What do you do with it?
Great question. There's 3 things I do with my money that I draw out. I don't know if this works in other countries, I'll have to check, but we've got a site in Australia called Living Room of Satoshi. So I will take my profits from various crypto and I will put them onto Living Room of Satoshi, and I'll pay my utilities bills there. I'll pay my American Express card. They take their little cut, obviously, a percentage. I think it's probably about 5% they take to do it. And that's one way that I use it, right? Or you can take out your money and you can swap one crypto for another. Like you can take some profits out and then buy a new one that's coming in. Like there's some new, there's some coins called micro coins, which are new ones that are coming in. So take your profits from one and then put them into a new one coming in, and just do that, right? But all of this, of course, is on your tax. You've got to be rigid with the government. You've got to be able to show your profits and your capital gains, just like you will on your property or any other asset, because it's an asset, yeah? And the third thing you can do is you can go to exchange and you can cash it out and get your money back, get some fiat.
Yeah. It's time-wise, we're really already, and I think we can talk forever on this, and there are still a lot of issues to solve and to think of. And I think also in the beginning, there were so many people just jumping on Bitcoin because they wanted to make this huge profit. And, people sold their houses and invested all in Bitcoin and to make huge profits and to live on it. This has to be somewhere, it has to become a way to pay, for your rent, for your, that you don't need your bank anymore, that all these things are going to be also normal, that you pay your holidays, your airline tickets, with your Bitcoins or any other coins that you have. Yeah, so that's the next step. for now, and I want to thank Maggie. Thank you very much, because there's a lot, and there's a lot more to learn. So that's really fantastic. Tebello, thank you. I know you need to go, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
There's a one pager that we sent you about the course and the discount available for Wize members. Did you get that? That's good. Yeah.
Not yet, but we will discuss it. Tebello will contact you to bring this on the Wize Move Society for its members. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And how to do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I unfortunately need to go into another meeting immediately.
Okay.
Also another crypto conversation. But I really just want to say to everyone that's watching and listening, if you have any questions with regards to crypto, find somebody that's close to you that you know is in the system and talk with them. And ask as many questions and as difficult, as easy questions as you have, because it's only through when we talk with each other that we're able to help each other understand, what this whole process and system is about. Maggie, lovely hearing from you, and everybody, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Tebello. And for just to wrap it up, this is only one of the new ways of thinking that will keep us of the older generation on our toes, because we need to keep up with what is going. If you're beginning 50s right now, there's another 40 years. So you will need to know what is going on. So even if you don't want to be involved in crypto or blockchain or whatever, know what it is all about. It might be the thing that is really going to happen, like the mobile phone and like all the other things that people all thought that it was never going to work. So it might be that this is going to happen. So be aware of what is going on in society, in the economy, because it might be that in your next step in your career that you really need it. So this is a glimpse of what is going on the Wize Move Society. If you are a member, well, you already heard Maggie is going to bring. Maggie, by the way, is like Nicolette, is one of our thought leaders in the Wize Move Society. Frances is one of our members, so also good to see her here. I'm sorry, that is my phone. And we are going to bring that course on the Wize Move Society. But there's also more ways that things that we need to discover. So there's a lot of unlearning, relearning, upskilling, reskilling to really be ready for the future. So this is all what is happening. So if you're not yet a member of the Wize Move Society, please join us and and let's together create that future, and but also to really develop ourselves and grow ourselves. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next Tuesday again.
Thank you very much, Ingun. Very insightful. Thank you, Maggie. Bye, Frances. Bye.
Bye. So stop live stream, stop recording.